Good afternoon. I'll speak loudly to overcome folks who are continuing to eat. Please don't rush. I understand if you rush your food, bad things could happen, and we'll live some of the words already expressed at this conference that will be gassy before anything else. Sorry, I couldn't avoid that. Look, this is a really interesting time for us to be together, not only as HIE, but obviously as an industry. And being in the Edison Institute, it makes sense to start off with words that Thomas Edison reportedly spoke, where he said that it's often the case that good fortune is when preparation and opportunity meet. And there's been a tremendous amount of preparation done, and the speaker who came before me, Jose Perez, has been the architect of that preparation here at HIE. And in so many respects was kind of ahead of the moment, as you need to be. So let me just start off my remarks by saying thank you, Jose, for building something that needed to be built. A lot of people knew it needed to be built, and Judge Diaz and I visited with Jose at that meeting many years ago to start talking about it. But Jose had the vision for it, and has been kind of like the Energizer Bunny, kind of charging around everywhere we go. So it's fascinating and great opportunity for Latinos, great opportunity for us to help the nation. So look, here's what I thought I'd do with the few minutes I've got. I'll tell you what I'm seeing in AI and what it's been meaning for Constellation, but also generally what I see happening for the industry, and then kind of talk about a couple other things and then run right back to the role of HIE. You've already heard from a great many speakers, and frankly, you didn't need to come here or listen in for all those who are following us virtually to understand that AI has been transformative. It obviously has been. For us at Constellation, we are the largest publicly traded power producing company in the world. The largest natural gas fleet, largest geothermal fleet, and of course, has already been mentioned, the largest nuclear fleet in the nation. We could take every bit of the energy that we have and put it to data centers, and it would not meet the need completely. So we have a great deal to build, I was on Fox News this morning, and I was asked, as I'm often asked, are we going to beat the Chinese? Are we actually going to be able to build more infrastructure than the Chinese to win the AI race? And what I said and what I believe is that if this comes down to a contest between us and the Chinese in terms of who could build more infrastructure faster, then we could call that game right now. That doesn't mean we should stop doing what we're doing, but frankly, they have built since 2010 the equivalent of the entirety of all of the power in the United States, plus another 50%. And so, we are struggling certainly to keep pace with them, and probably won't. We do have a bit of an inherent advantage. We have an advantage that our system presently is vastly underutilized most hours of the year. And so if you look at system utilization, it's about 53% where we do business. If you look at every RTO in the nation, it ranges from about, call it high 40s utilization to maybe low 60s utilization. So we have a system that has vast amounts of excess capacity, again, most hours of the year. The problem is the peak hours of demand are getting very hard to manage. That's creating an affordability issue for customers, and that affordability issue is now translating into actions to block data center development and to encumber it with restrictions that, frankly, are going to challenge us more than our inability to build infrastructure with the Chinese. This NIMBYism, or I guess a banana is the new NIMBY, which is, I think it's build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. I think that's kind of what this is translating to, and that would be unfortunate. And we have to kind of lead the way, because the reports that recently came out are that if we're able to utilize this part of the system that's underutilized, in other words, spread the cost of every substation, every transmission line, every wire, every transformer, whatever it is, if you could spread those fixed costs among more hours of consumption, it's like It's like having a bridge that is only used during the summertime. If you could get people to use it in the winter and pay tolls, you could reduce the tolls that you charge in the summer to recover the fixed costs. That's the same thing that's true for the electric system and to a certain extent for the gas pipeline system. So we've got to figure out a way to manage the peak energy demand, either by flexibility or incremental generation or batteries or whatnot at peak. But if we're able to do that and just use the slack in our system, we will not be behind the Chinese. That's the bottom line. I think that's fundamentally the message I leave you. This is driving conversations that are political and technical. This being the AI economy is driving all of these conversations. HIE is a place where we can convene leaders to talk about the solution sets. I just talked about one of them. But a couple of the things that we decided very early on in our days at HIE, and it was the work of Jose, but also the board, this highly compensated board we have. I'm only kidding. We've got board members who work, and I'm looking at a couple of them, but there's a bunch of them around the room here, but folks who work the job like they're highly paid ball players, but they're doing this because it's been a lifelong passion, as it has been for Judge Diaz, as it has been for Jose, Dennis, and so many others who have spent their life fighting this, fighting for the cause of getting Latinos opportunities. And so it's really exciting to see that happening. But we made a decision that this organization wasn't going to be about taking position one technology against another. That was one fundamental tenet. HIE always believed in abundance, and that wasn't easy in the early days when there was, frankly, a bias against anything that emitted CO2 and a desire, frankly, to utilize organizations like HIE to be, to be one that picks winners and losers. Let me just leave it at that. And we avoided that temptation, again, thanks to Jose's leadership. We have an organization now that touches every aspect of the energy sector, suppliers, all different types of energies, all different types of technologies. That's really exciting because I think that's where we're going to need to be. I think the other thing we did early on is we decided this isn't going to be an in-your-face confrontational organization. The HIE is not walking into companies and saying, hey, your spend with Latinos stinks, or you need to do a little bit more with employment here, and if you don't, here are the parade of horribles we're going to have. We're going to run, put out reports about you and studies. I am not criticizing organizations that do that. I get it, and it is effective at times, but we decided it wasn't going to be effective for us. So it wasn't just running around like an Energizer bunny, but I think it was the board thinking very carefully about what it would mean to be in a moment like this. A moment that's pivotal for Latinos, but more importantly, pivotal for America. And just to draw the connection that's been drawn readily by many of you already, I think we could lay claim as Latinos to disproportionately having put the labor in to build America as it is today. And we see evidence of that in every part of the country, in every skill, from the very basic skills to professional skills. And if that is true, I think it is equally true as we look at the demographics that we will have a heavy hand to play in the future of America and what we build. And what has changed in this energy conversation to me is that it's no longer about the things that were important 5 or 6 years ago. We cared about electric reliability, but we were dealing in an environment where we had pretty abundant reliability. We thought about affordability, but those issues weren't necessarily acute. In fact, the cost of supply in most of these markets is cheaper today, nominally, than it was 14 or 15 years ago because of natural gas fracking, because of efficiencies and other things that we've done to make the system better. But we were living in a space of some abundance, and that abundance masked some underlying problems in the system that became readily apparent as soon as we started to get some real demand in the system. And now we not only have real demand, but we've got a ton of it. And dimensionally, what this looks like is, if I think of the 3 largest companies in the electric sector, our company, maybe the Southern Company and NextEra, the sum total, the market capitalization of all those companies is $450 billion. Big slip there. Give me back those 3 zeros. But $450 billion, right? And if you read what the Edison Institute put out last year about the value of all the utilities in the country combined, you're talking about $1.1 trillion. Put the IPPs with that, maybe you could get to $1.4 or $1.5 trillion of market cap value representing the investor value of everything that's been built in this country over the last 120 years till now, okay? $1.5 trillion, roughly a third of the size of some of the customers we're chasing. Customers that are $4 billion and spending amounts on capital, building things that consume electricity in amounts we've never seen before, and they're doing that at an astonishing rate. Last year, the major hyperscalers spent $600 billion on infrastructure, okay? So for those of you keeping score at home, that's more than the sum total of the 3 largest companies in this sector for everything they own. For our company, representing 25% of the U.S. nuclear fleet, more natural gas plants than anyone else, is piddly. And the other thing that has been presented beyond just the dimensions of the demand that we're seeing in the construction is in keeping pace with these customers, we're also seeing a bit, if we're going to be honest, of a clash of cultures. Now, if you were to kind of rank American industrial sectors or business sectors from most risk-averse, slow planning, to the most innovative and where speed is everything, you probably wouldn't do wrong in saying utilities and power companies are on the side of long-term planning and methodical is a generous word to use, but methodical planning and execution. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have some of the most innovative, fast-moving companies on the face of the planet, companies that don't believe in no as an answer to anything. And now you're saying we're going to bring these 2 things together and get them to work together. And I think the exciting thing, and we heard about it on some of the panels that I got to listen to already, and you all heard, if we tackle this the way we've always tackled it before, we're not going to get there. We've got to change direction. Look, it's not like we don't, people talk about the future of nuclear. I heard that on the panel. Everybody wants to talk about nuclear. Great, I want to talk about it too. But it's not like we're doing something in new nuclear we haven't done. We've been splitting the atom in this country and making energy for 50 years. And most of the designs, regardless of how clever they are simple iterations of what we're doing with some incremental safety features. Look, there's sodium reactors and different things. The Idaho National Lab ran a sodium reactor for 20 or 30 years. This stuff we have done. Likewise, gas. We talked about geothermal a moment ago. Renewables, what we've done. What we haven't been able, and transmission and all of the wires business and stuff. We've done that stuff. That's cool. We're not going to Mars here. But we have to regain the muscle to do it quickly and better than ever before. And I'll just close out this part of my remarks in saying this. These folks that we are powering must, in fact, power us as well with new ideas, and we need to be open to that. We need to be open to thinking about business at a speed which we have not been able to sustain before, at a scale we have never contemplated before, and with ideas that we've never thought of before. And we've got wonderful partners to be able to do that. If we meet the moment, if we bring these 2 cultures together and use some of these AI tools to solve the problems that have been befuddling us in our industry for many, many years, then we'll get there. And I see signs of it everywhere. 15%, I'll give you a few examples of things we are doing that I never thought we would be doing 24 months ago. 24 months ago, we were designing every reactor core. And that just means and I should get Gabe back up here because he could do it better than me, but basically saying where to put different fuel rods in a reactor core as we refuel it to maximize the output of the plant. In the future, most of that will be done by AI models, not nuclear physicists, who will do it and imagine ways to use the fuel better and more creatively than we have heretofore. 15% of our time, a lot of people at nuclear plants, you know what they do 15% of their time? They think about planning for work that's going to occur at some point in the future. So at a moment at my plants, I've got 150 people or 200 people at every plant, if you combine corporate with that are doing nothing else than thinking about an outage that's going to occur somewhere in the future and making sure we can do all of the scheduled work at that time. And if you think about the complexity here and the thousands of components in a nuclear plant, if you're going to work on this widget, you got to know what it does to that thing over there, and you've got to coordinate it very carefully. AI is going to be able to do that scheduling for us and track that scheduling a lot better. When we see constructability, if we keep, and Gabe touched on this, if we keep building things the way we've built things in the past, we're not going to get there. But the AI scheduling tools that we're adopting are going to be there. We are operating multiple assets. Right now, with computers controlling how we dispatch hydroelectric dams, creating $40 million more energy annually by doing that sort of thing. And then, of course, all the back office applications and everything we do to support a business is being touched by AI. We have to move at the speed of light in terms of bringing that technology to bear in our business. And we do all of these things right, we will meet the moment, if we do them all right. We have a head start on the technology, arguably, if what I hear is to be believed. We have slack in the system that we could utilize, and we're building stuff we built before, and we know how it works with supply chains that need to be invigorated. And then we have some of the most innovative minds at our disposal bring us tools that we've never used before. And allow us to do the most important thing in this life, is to reinvent ourselves constantly and figure out how to do things better, how to do things cheaper, and how to do things more effectively overall for our owners and for our communities. So that's what's in front of us. For your life, for especially, I think about the young people, or I used to say the younger people in me, but I realize that encompasses a great many. So I'll just say the really young, the truly young folks in this business. Those folks that mark their age with a 3 handle or a 4 handle, and all those that came before. There have been people that have been in seats like this forever, and they have said things like, boy, I wish I was around when, okay? If you're in the aerospace industry, you were saying right now, God, that Artemis stuff, that's really cool, but man, could you imagine being around when the nation devoted so much of its resources to the Apollo missions and landing people on the moon and doing all that stuff? That's this moment. That's this moment. And what we're doing at HIE is trying to be a convener between all of you in the room and the thousands that are listening, so that we could bring our resources to bear in terms of people power and connections and all of the other things that we owe to this nation that has been a home to our families and is frankly the nation we all love and want to see prosper and be defended. That's what's at stake now. When you all have grandchildren, as I do, and you have them on your lap and you get to say, what was I doing when? You'll have a great story to tell. Let's make it a wonderful story with a great conclusion. With that, I'm going to bring up Maria. She's going to lead a panel discussion. Thank you all.